What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the At Last podcast. We're so excited that we're recording once again. We had a little hiatus. It's just been such a busy season. It's May. Maybe some of you listening are going through some kind of transition in life. It's just like end of the school semester, heading into the summer, graduations, and we have our work life, especially in church. It's just a lot, but different hobbies and stuff that we are a part of and that we like to take part in. So it's just a very busy season, but we're happy to be back. And we're excited for this topic. But just a little recap of like what's been going on in the season. Obviously, Mother's Day happened recently, if we're recapping May. And this has been my second Mother's Day. My first one, my little baby was still in my belly, but this was my first one where, I actually got to hold him and really experience like having my kid in my arms, So it was a very sweet Mother's Day. It was also just very busy, the back and forth, visiting our moms and things like that. But Mother's Day was very sweet, and I'm just really enjoying motherhood. I feel like this season is as he's getting older, like as my son is getting older, it feels like it's getting a little bit easier. Even if he's crazy and very hyper and energetic, it just feels easier to sit back and watch him grow up and watch him walk and be silly and gain a personality. So I'm really enjoying it, but that's been like a little recap for me.
Mother's Day and all the fun.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a very busy season. There's been a lot going on. One of our very close friends got married.
Yeah, that too.
I wasn't
wedding
out of town
season.
a lot. I don't know why. It's just been a hectic season.
You have been out of town a lot.
I have been out of town. This is probably, I feel like, the most I've been out of town, like just in a season of life. There's just been different things going on that have caused me to be out of town. But yeah, it's been a very busy season. So
and we're thankful. Yeah, like we're thankful that you are coming back and listening.
Yes.
Like if you realize like, hey, they haven't posted in a little while.
We're learning, we're grooving, we're getting with the seasons.
And trust me that we're thinking about this all the time. Like I always ask Megan, and she asked me too, like, hey, we need to record. We need to do an episode. And there's even stuff that happens and topics that come up. We're like, oh, we need to record that. We need to record it. So we're just excited for what the season holds. It's not like life is going to slow down, but I think we're just regaining our steps. So last night we had our young adult service, and I had the honor of teaching last night. Ooh. And it had been a minute, I feel like.
The last time you taught was in North Complex, and that was probably about 2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago?
Maybe a year ago?
No,
it wasn't last, because you didn't teach last year because you were pregnant. It's been 2 years.
That's crazy. It doesn't seem like that long, but anyway, now we've moved into the main worship center, and it just feels different. God is definitely moving, and I feel like the hunger in the room is evident. And I was given a very difficult topic. I was excited, and I don't think it really hit me like how hard this was going to be until I was really in the depths of sermon prepping. But we were walking through this series called Fruit versus Flesh, where we are laying out very real aspects of our flesh and our sinful nature, and then also looking at the fruit of the Spirit laid out in Galatians 5. And I shared this last night, but I have found myself on this podcast and our Paper Room podcast for young adults, and then just in conversations with people, I have found myself for a whole year now, like coming back to the fruit of the Spirit. I love just like how clear and evident it is that it's so beneficial to our life if we are bearing fruit and if we hold on to these things: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. I don't know if I forgot one, but just to answer so many questions of life, like, how am I supposed to look more like Christ, and who do I look for in a future spouse? We talk about dating a lot on this podcast. I'm sure we've mentioned it more than once, that the fruit of the Spirit is like a good test. If you are really struggling with a lot of them, then it's kind of like a warning sign, to go and do a heart check and a soul check of how close you are with Jesus. So I was very excited about it, but as we were going through the series, we were, choosing the outbursts or the flesh realities, and I had to speak on the flesh reality of anger. And anger is so complicated because it's not a sin to be angry. It's how you use your anger that causes you to either be sinful or honor God. So it was hard to kind of lay out like that contrast between the fruit of the Spirit and when you're angry. But I really did feel like it was such a needed message for me growing up in church. I didn't know what to do with anger because it was never really talked about in depth, and like it just wasn't taught, like how to manage your emotions. It wasn't taught or talked about. So I just grew up thinking like, well, Christians, you shouldn't be angry. Like, it's very bad. And bad things happen when you're angry. So I was able to walk through, the fact that your anger is a very real emotion. It's as real as happiness or sadness. It was given to us by the Lord, and it is very purposeful. It can be, but left to its own freedom and left to its own will, it can lead us down a very destructive path. So yeah, it was very tough. But what were some of your takeaways from last night on this topic specifically that you saw from your perspective, being in the audience, point of view?
I think for sure when you laid out like what you had, I can't remember, but you had the question and there were answers. Like it was go to the judge and counselor, let gentleness lead. What was the prompting to that? That
was the very last part. So I walked through 3 questions because I feel like there's so many questions just regarding anger. And that first one was, can Christians be angry? The answer is like, yes, obviously we can get angry. We have that capability. And then the second question is like, okay, well, I know I should resolve it, but before I resolve it, I don't know like exactly why I'm angry. So then ask yourself, why am I angry? And seek to understand that, because there's so many different mixtures of emotions that could really be the root of that anger. And so I shared some personal examples with that. And then that last question was, okay, now what do I do with it?
Yes. Yeah.
And underneath that question, I just shared just a few things, for the sake of time. The first one was to make sure that your anger is slow to progress, but never suppress it. And then go to the judge and the counselor, who is our God, who is way more capable of judging what is right and wrong, and way more capable of being our counsel when we have no ability to counsel ourselves. And then the last thing was to lead out of gentleness, and then describing that fruit as not the opposite of anger, but as a very close friend that we can allow to overtake us, allow to overwhelm us in those moments of rage and outbursts and impulsiveness.
Yeah. Thought that was really good. And then also the iceberg, I think that was super helpful. Isha like laid out what possibly anger like could actually be hidden underneath, So a lot of times we just label it like anger, but in reality it could be misplaced hurt, or it could be bitterness, or it could be grieving something that has now gone into the shape of anger, but it wasn't the first start of that. And so I think that was super helpful too, especially from talking to just different girls. Like they didn't even know they had anger, but it was more so like they realized like it was unresolved from like from these emotions, So I think that was also super helpful. And I think you also just talking about your dad and him being extremely gentle, and then that being something that you actually ended up looking for in your future spouse. I think that's also something that's super needed to be talked about, that there are men out there that can have the characteristic of gentleness. And because I think sometimes there can be this persona that men just struggle with anger. That's something I've heard before, that, well, all guys are going to struggle with anger in some form of fashion because they're just different. They're made differently. Like, it's just going to be something that guys just do. But I just don't always think that's the case. You know, I have met men in my life who have been very gentle. And so I think you talking about that, I think that broke down a lot of stereotypes for the girls who maybe grew up with dads who weren't the most gentle, or who have dated men who aren't gentle either. That, hey, like, there are gentle giants out there, and it is possible to find someone who can have the fruit of gentleness and not just struggle with anger.
Wow. Yeah. And my dad was the very first thing that came to my mind for this entire message. Like, before I even was ready to write anything down, I just thought of him because he has been such a very good example of somebody that is the most kind teddy bear, you know, like somebody that is just like so loving to literally everyone that he meets. Like, the man is soft, you know, like when you meet him, but he is able to also resemble strength and godly masculinity.
He gives off the perfect balance of gentleness, but then also protector. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think sometimes when people think of gentleness, they can think of meekness, but your dad is not, well, meekness is a good characteristic, but that's not what I mean. You can think of
that it's like weak, and that it's like passive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not your dad.
That's something that, you know, if we had like 2 hours to talk about this last night, I wish I could have delved more deep into it, because, you know, with any situation that you have, you can really just run with any kind of hard statement without really considering all the factors. And with anger, what made this message so difficult is that there's so many factors that go into a situation that could be different for somebody else. And so it's really hard to make blanket statements, because it really is case by case scenario of how you should respond to a certain situation. There's injustice, and then there's things that are right to someone else and they're wrong to someone else. Like, it's just so difficult. But, yeah, when I was kind of laying out, you know, especially my dad, like he was able to hold both a gentleness for us, a protection for us, that also was very strong. It was not, his love for us wasn't always just soft and quiet. Like, you know, in those moments of discipline, when he did show his anger visibly, you know, on him, even if he was raising his voice, or even if he, you know, got in our face and told us, like, this is wrong, what you're doing, and you need to stop doing this, you know, whatever that discipline moment was, it was strength, and it was defending either God's word, or it was defending our mom when we would talk back to her, or it was defending their teaching, what they taught us and were raising us to do and to be. But I always had that picture of him having that moment, then coming back to us, finding us. You know, I was crying. You know, it's not fun to be disciplined by your dad. And it wasn't fun for him either. So he would cry along with us and wrap us up, hold us, make sure that we knew and understand that what he was doing, that his discipline was also love, that he loved us enough to protect us from walking down a destructive path. So that is a blessing. And I knew as I was sharing this story that there are so many people that had a completely different dad than I did, that had abusive parents, that had a mom or a dad that used anger and abused it, and really caused trauma for a lot of people. And I knew that going into it. So as I was closing out, I knew that the room would be heavy because of that. And I was just really praying that because of the time and because I couldn't explain and get into everything in depth, I was really praying that my description of our Heavenly Father would be there for them, that we would be able to understand God as someone who loves us deeply, who is also our father and cares for what we do and care and desires for us to live a holy life. And discipline is going to come into that his love is not always soft and always gentle, that his love can be strong. His love can be forceful, but not reckless, and not, well, his love can be, strong, that it can carry both things. So that was my hope and my prayer, that even if somebody had terrible examples of anger and did not have good examples of gentleness around them, that we would be able to look to our Heavenly Father to have everything in order, to have a literally perfect character for us to look to, and for us to look for in others that we want to surround ourselves by. I have been very blessed in my life to have a great dad that had that example. And then I've also been in relationships that were not that. And finding my husband that just, I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I just was able to find somebody that had a very similar character in his gentleness and anger. It's not a privilege. It's what you decide to do. It's what you choose to look for.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. I think even for girls who may be listening, who maybe are don't even know what that looks like, what does gentleness even look like in a healthy way, I would really encourage you to get surrounded by, observe and be around Christian married couples, wherever your home church is at. Observe the married couples around you, observe their behavior, observe how they act and interact with each other. And based on that, you'll be able to decipher the fruit of gentleness and ask hey, can I just come observe a night with y'all, when kids are running around, and just be able to sit there and watch that. Because I think at times when you've grown up with parents, or been in situations where there's been maybe verbal abuse or have been a lot of anger, it's really hard to know what correct parenting looks like, or what gentleness even looks like or feels like.
That balance to have.
And so being around married couples or families who represent gentleness in a very loving way can be really helpful to maybe break down any stereotypes that maybe you had in your head of what that looks like, and to also just see if a kid messes up or does something, the first response always doesn't have to be lashing out, but it can be grace, and seeing what that looks like.
Right. Yeah. Grace with correction, and what that looks like. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that who you are looking toward or who you're looking up to is going to be perfect. So in any case, we have to be careful with that too. I feel like we really can put even just leaders in the church on a pedestal, well, they're supposed to be perfect, they're supposed to have it all together and not act this way. Yeah. We draw lines, but, the goal and the hope is that we would strive to be slow to anger, and that we would see those examples, that we would be those examples, that we would be quick to listen, to slow down, to stop, even when our insides are raging and we feel so many things, that we would remember the Holy Spirit as our counselor, that he provides us with that clarity, that he's able to open our eyes and see the situation clearly. And even when we can't, that we can ask someone to come into the situation and see it clearly, because we know that in our nature, we know in our sinful way, we're gonna do something that we'll regret, that will cause harm to somebody else. And I made sure to mention that last night too. I've never seen my husband angry. I've never seen that. We've been married almost 4 years. And it's not to say that he's never going to get angry, because then I would be putting myself in a very complicated situation if I told myself, he's never going to get angry. This is who he is. He's never angry. I'm going to be shocked and disappointed when I finally see that, you know. But we can almost predict, like, if any sort of thing happens to me, it's my hope and prayer that I would have already been in practice of being slow to anger, that I would have already been practicing in those little moments to take my thoughts captive, to be able to calm my heart down, you know, my mind, all the things. But yeah, anger is such a sensitive topic for a lot of people. I had a couple girls come up to me, ask for prayer. One of them was like, I wasn't even sure like why I wanted to bring this up, or even if I should, but there was a lot of yelling around me when I was little. She was like, she totally knew, like I was verbally abused. And even now to this day, when there's like just really loud yelling noises around me, like I still it freaks me out. She said, like, I panic and I feel like I'm not safe. She was just sharing with me about it. But she already understood, like this is just a reality for me. And so I affirmed her and I encouraged her, like, it's totally normal because you experience trauma. It's totally normal for your body to react. Even if you in your mind and in your heart have done the work with the Lord to heal, and it happened so long ago, your body carries trauma. So whenever something happens that triggers those same exact feelings, it's totally normal for you to react in that way. But the Lord has given us people that are extremely gifted, that are professionals, that help give us tools to really give us practical things to do in those moments so that we aren't just spiraling for like an hour. And so I asked her if she had looked into counseling. She said, yeah, I've done that for other things, but never for this specific thing. And so I told her, then you know how helpful and beneficial it can be. I would highly encourage you to go back and specifically talk about this one thing, how your body reacts, the certain situations around you that can trigger you. And she received that. And and she was just kind of like wanting to get that validation, like, just because I think something, I'm fine, right? You know, like I didn't do anything wrong. And so I walked her through also, like, just taking your thoughts captive. We're not able to control thoughts that come up that we didn't plan, but we can control what continues. We can control what is overtaking our mind in that moment. So
yeah, I think counseling is huge. Like, if you grew up in a household where there was a lot of yelling or anger, like, counseling is so needed, because I think sometimes you can even think like, oh, I don't need it for that. Like, I've moved on, I've healed, which possibly, but there's also the other side that when your body, like your brain develops, like from ages, your subconscious develops from the time you're born to age 5. So if you're around a lot of abuse during that time, that's how your brain is like developing. So then when you grow older and different things are happening, your like 5-year-old self is kind of reacting, not necessarily your 24, 25, 23, 18-year-old self. And so counseling really helps a lot with that, of giving tools of like how to help yourself respond to those moments, tools. And so I would highly, highly, highly encourage that. Like, can't talk about that enough. And also, I think sometimes that when you grow up in that household, you yourself are so scared to get angry because of how you've seen it, in a sense of how it's been uncontrolled. Like, then you know,
like, I don't want to be like that at all. So then you resort to an extreme, right? An extreme of like, even because it's a very real emotion. It's something you are going to feel. It's inevitable. The feeling even scares you. Yes. And so then we resort to the extreme of like, no. Like, I'm afraid of what I'm capable of because I've seen what other people are capable of, when it's not the same thing. Yeah. But sure. Yeah, it's very complex, and the Lord is just he's kind. He's honest and kind. That's what gentleness is. It can be honest, forgiving, graceful, lowly, and just something that we can have in the palm of our hand to give out to others and to give to ourselves as well. I think if we lead from that, then it helps us to not suppress it and really just to control whatever it is that we're feeling, whatever situation.
Yeah. And if you're maybe watching or listening and not watching,
Not
yet, coming soon. No, it's not. But anyways, but if you're listening and maybe you grew up in that, I would really encourage you to pray for the parent that maybe caused that, and pray for their spirit, that the Lord would change them and soften whatever seems to be harsh, that the Lord would soften it, and provide them with a gentle spirit, and that the Lord would also mend your heart, that it maybe if you never even get an apology, you're able to still heal from it.
Because anger is so exhausting.
So yeah, exhausting.
It really it drains you. And so if you feel like you've been angry about something that you haven't even talked about, that's one step, is to talk about it, release it, take it from the depths of your soul and bring it out to the light. But know that you don't have to soften your heart alone. You don't have to get rid of bitterness that has taken root alone. You don't have to rely on your own strength to fix yourself or to fix a situation or to fix your trauma or to fix your habits or your triggers. Like, you don't have to rely on yourself for that. Yeah. So please get into community. Pick one person that you trust, that loves Jesus, that has a desire for looking more like him, that is bearing fruit, and entrust something with them that you haven't entrusted with anyone, really. And allow yourself to be helped. That's a big one. Yeah,
it's very, very good.
But this was like a short little convo on anger. I hope that even something that we said, if you missed YA last night, or if you just don't attend, or if you're not a YA, if you're not a young adult, and anger has been kind of a touchy subject for you, then I really hope and pray that something we said encouraged you, maybe challenged you, pushed you to do something, to take a next step, or even just to seek prayer and talk to the Lord about people around you, your friends, your future spouse, or your current spouse. I just pray that our fruit of the Spirit would be evident, that we would walk around with gentleness on our heart, and in our hands. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the At Last podcast.
We hope you guys like it.
Yes, and we will try our best to keep up with episodes.
Yes.
Let us know if this helped you. Let us know if from this you thought of something else that maybe you'd like to hear us talk about or share, because we'd be more than happy to.
We love you guys.
Bye.